We are live now. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, June. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this decision day. I think we're just going to crack on. So the first item on the agenda is talking about a grant award to Winchester City Council for homelessness services. Emma?
Thanks very much, Councillor Fairhurst. Yes, this report is proposing a grant of £83,000 to Winchester City Council to support them with the provision of homelessness support services. As you're aware, the decision was taken by Cabinet in October last year to withdraw the Hampshire County Council funding for homelessness support from the 1st of April 2026. However, in Winchester, they have a 29-bed, 24-hour support service called Westview House, which provides support to people with multiple and quite complex support needs. But the provider gave notice on this contract prior to the Cabinet decision, and so therefore this service is going to close at the end of April this year, leaving a period of 11 months before our funding is withdrawn across the rest of the county. And the early end of that contract will release savings of almost £250,000. Therefore, Winchester City Council have requested this grant to enable them to support those people who either will be moving on from Westview House, or also the people who may have used that service during that 11 months. So quite a number of people from a 29-bed unit across that period of time. The support will be used to help those people to engage with services. That might be things like adult social care, health services, services that support people with their addictions, and with finance, those sorts of things. And it will support those people who will be moving on to new tenancies to support them to maintain their tenancies, but also people who may end up sleeping, going back to friends and family, or potentially there may be some people who are sleeping rough. So it will support those people to engage with services and to be able to move on to more permanent accommodation. It will also allow Winchester City Council time over that 11 months before the rest of the funding is withdrawn across the county, just to sort of be able to provide that support in line with the other districts and boroughs, and also give them time really to review their future service provision. And if this grant is agreed, it will still allow remaining savings of almost £167,000.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Oppenheimer, have you got any questions?
I'll just make a brief comment, if I may. I thought it was particularly noticeable from the Equalities Impact Assessment that over 50% of the residents have a disability, and I think that was quite a striking figure for me, and I think a very strong rationale for making this award is that it will have a positive impact on not just disability but also poverty, and I appreciated everything in the Equality Impact Assessment. It was very thorough, good level of detail. So I want to thank you, Emma, and your team for that. I learned a lot about homelessness in Winchester from reading it.
Thank you, Councillor Oppenheimer. Councillor Withers.
Yes, taking into account what was said about obviously the homelessness contract being finished the 31st of March 2026, I think it's only right that we give due attention to the homelessness and those needy people in Winchester, and fully support and endorse the grant.
Thank you. Jason, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Councillor Fairhurst. Only to say additionally that this resource will support people to secure longer term solutions to their situations, as well as all of the above in terms of their immediate situation. So I welcome the support that councillors have commented today. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Emma, thank you for all your work. I'm more than happy to approve the grant. 83,000 till March 26, is it? March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
it will just support them for the 11 months of 25-26, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Happy to approve. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emma, you're very welcome to stay or you're welcome to go, depending on what you feel like. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Fairhurst. I think I will carry on with some other bits. Thank
Don't
you.
blame you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. The second one is the revenue budget, the public health grant and savings programme. Jonathan, I guess this is all down to you now.
It is indeed, yes. Thank you, Councillor Fairhurst. So this is the revenue budget report for adults health and care, which is brought to executive member each year as part of the council's overall budget setting process. The report makes 3 recommendations: to approve for submission to Cabinet the SP25 Phase 2 savings proposals, which are set out in Appendix 4 to the report, to approve for submission to Cabinet the revised 24-25 revenue budget and proposed 25-26 budget, and to approve the Directorate's fees and charges for 25 to 26. Sections D and E of the report set out the Council's overall financial position, with a budget gap of £97.6 million remaining for 25-26. And provide an overview of the work undertaken during 2024 to review the services provided by the Directorate against a set of core purpose principles, and that work was supported by an independent panel of experts. Section F of the report then details the key Directorate challenges and priorities for the coming year, which include further work on a demand management strategy for adult social care, development of new opportunities to facilitate independent living, and continued delivery of interventions in the key priority areas set out within the public health strategy. Section G of the report provides an update on the in-year budget monitoring position for period 8, with an adverse variance of £20.7 million forecast for the year, and the key pressures arising within older and younger adults purchased care. Section H then presents the impact of these in-year pressures on the proposed budget for 25-26. When taken together with allowances for additional growth in activity and prices, which are expected to occur next year, this has required total additional funding of £42.4 million within a budget for 25-26. Section I provides an overview of the existing SP25 Phase 1 savings and proposes additional Phase 2 savings of £9.3 million for implementation by 26-27, of which 5.2 million are deliverable in 25-26. And further details of these savings are set out in Appendix 4 to the report. The HCC care and support services proposals are subject to a Stage 2 consultation, which will be overseen by a task and finish member working group. Section I of the report also sets out the additional savings expected to be achieved by the Council's mutually agreed resignation scheme, as well as a detailed housekeeping review of the general areas of non-pay spend. The report then summarises the combined impact of all these changes in funding and savings on the proposed budget for 25-26. And then finally, Section K sets out the rationale for the proposed increase in fees and charges for next year, which are detailed in Appendix 3 of the report. That's all I was planning to say by way of introduction. Thanks.
Thank you. Jason, can I ask you A, to comment, but B, how sure are you that we will be able to achieve these savings?
My comment is really to support the illustration. So on the basis of the description that Jonathan's provided around the report, clearly there is that balance between our responsible management of the finances across the directorate, which has a significant bearing on the financial position of the council, against our regulatory requirements to provide a quality service and to make sure that we are meeting the needs of people who draw on care and support. We have a very strong track record of our ability to meet savings over the course of the last decade, or there or thereabouts, and we have a very clear, transparent, managed set of processes and work streams that provide the illustration of how we go about our strength-based approach and working across our particular directorate, and we provide regular reporting and escalated risks to and within the council where we are forecasting that may be challenged. So on that basis, I'm clear that with some confidence, with everything that's been described in the complexity of the various work streams that have an interdependency, whether that relies to our savings programs or the mutually agreed resignation scheme for the workforce, etc., we'll work through in a realistic way to be able to report to members and to the residents of Hampshire how we're proceeding with our financial responsibility.
Thank you, Jason. Simon, do you want to say anything about the public health grant? Or
at this point, we do not know what the public health grant will be in April. We are assured it is coming in January, however the days are ticking on. So we are making the assumption, as we do every year, that it will be similar to what we have this year. But just to remind colleagues, that does make planning spend quite difficult. Even if there's a small increase, you cannot spend money. Commissioning a service takes a little while. But we are in that place. We manage our budgets well, even though we have a small reserve.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Oppenheimer.
Thank you, Councillor Fairhurst. Can I ask Jason a question? And
yes.
This is really just because it might come up at the cabinet meeting where we've got to review the budgets. Jason, we had a post-pandemic spike in demand, which was predicted. We knew it was going to happen, and it did. But the question is this: is there any sign from the front line that the post-pandemic spike in demand has peaked, or at least leveled off, or not? Is it just continuing on an upward trend? So it's really just about your sense of where demand is going over the next 12 months.
I will answer that in the first instance, and Simon, from a public health perspective, you may also want to support from your perspective in public health. I mean, certainly we're seeing the lag and the hangover from the pandemic. It was a significant event. As a result of that, there are a number of different factors that I would think would contribute to our demand, both from a morbidity perspective, but also from an economic perspective, where the market is also clearly re-establishing itself. Fortunately, we're in a reasonably healthy position to be able to meet the demand across Hampshire with some really careful commissioning arrangements. In regard to the demand across the piece, we are seeing different demographic pressures. So we're seeing a number of younger people being referred through into the service, which is clearly an area where we need to be aware and responding to effectively. But I can't see at the moment any immediate signs that the demand is petering off. And we know, and we've been receiving information from Census and ONS, etc., to see that from a Hampshire demographic perspective, we need to be really alive to an older population and the continuing pressures that will bring local authorities and public and health and social care services in the forthcoming years. Simon, I don't know if you had anything to add from a public health perspective.
So I think what we saw in the pandemic, it not only was a hugely impacting illness on our population, but it actually disrupted many others. So we saw a distribution of infectious diseases very different to what we've seen before. But I think also we've seen people's health changing over that time, as Jason's saying. So the demand is different to what we have seen before. Now, yes, during the pandemic, many of us were able to go for our daily walk, and actually some people have carried that on, but many haven't. And then many became more frail. So I think we are still in the kind of post-pandemic. We'll see that for many years on many different things, and we'll see things in 5-10 years time that we hadn't seen before.
Well, thank you for those answers. That's really interesting. And yeah, I'm grateful.
Thank you, Councillor Oppenheimer. Councillor Withers.
Chair, as you know, that the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee looked at all these proposed savings at their recent HAS meeting, and we fully endorsed the recommendations made on that occasion. So I further endorse those recommendations that Jonathan's given today.
Thank you, Councillor Withers. Yes, I'm very happy to endorse the recommendations as well. Very happy for it to be going to Cabinet. Slightly worries me that we never seem to get to the place where we don't have to make savings. It's every year, I think for the last 15 years, we've come, and although some of the savings we've made have actually improved people's lives because we've done things differently, I'm not sure how long we can carry on doing that. Maybe another couple of years, I hope, but because of the measures we take, we actually improve their independence and give them a greater quality of life. Anyway, I'm happy to approve that, but I'm even more happy to go on to the next item, which is the capital programme, which I think is really good news. So, Jonathan, are you taking us through the capital programme?
Indeed, I will. Yes, thank you, Councillor Fairhurst. So the capital programme, the report presents the proposed adult services capital programme for 25-26, the provisional programme for 26-27 and 27-28, and the revised programme for the current year 24-25 for submission to Cabinet and Council in February. The report provides a summary of the schemes of the overall capital cash limit of £358 million and details of how these are planned to be funded. The future capital spend is largely profiled for 27-28 and future years, which reflects the time frame for the delivery of the new and refurbished HCC care and support units as part of the care home investment programme, which is currently in the design stage. There are also two further key strands to the capital programme. The older adults extra care and younger adult supported accommodation programmes. So the budgets for these programmes essentially represent a holding position at this stage, with all the existing capital allocations retained within the programmes. Strategy development work is currently being undertaken for extra care and supported accommodation, with detailed plans to be brought forward for these programmes at a later date. So there are two key strands to the younger adults programme. Supporting delivery of new accommodation by third parties through the issue of grants, and also remodelling some of our existing facilities to bring them up to standard and increase the capacity as well. And within the older adults extra care programme, a new extra care scheme in Havant will be considered for approval by the leader and executive member for Hampshire 2050 later this month. And we are also looking at potential new routes to market for additional schemes to build a future extra care pipeline, including options to build, buy or partner with developers. And finally, I'll just highlight that the disabled facilities grant has increased by around 14% for 25-26, which is really positive news. The grant is paid across the districts to deliver home adaptations which support our vulnerable residents in maximising their independence. And that was all I was planning to say for an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I have to say, I think supported living accommodation for younger adults with disabilities is one of the best things we've ever done. I think it makes such a difference to younger adults' lives and their ability to have some independence and some control over their lives. It is wonderful. And certainly, again, extra care for older adults, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, the difference it makes to older people who've been living maybe in social isolation, They move in and they suddenly get a life back. Brilliant. So, Jason, sorry, I'll stop waxing. I'll leave it to you.
I think you've said exactly what I would like to say, is that these schemes stand for our aspiration to support people to maximize their independence and to live their best lives, away from what we know the traditional kind of institutionalized environments that we once used to rely upon. So I think we will continue on this trajectory to work with our communities to understand what works for them and what they prefer in terms of being able to live their day to day and to be able to take greater choice and control. And as you said, Councillor Fairhurst, these are the schemes which illustrate that most in such a contemporary way. And we can give you lots of examples and stories of how people have really benefited from these types of accommodation. And this is why we're putting the evidence and the business case behind growing this in the way in which the request is presented today. So really grateful for your enthusiastic response to those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oppenheimer.
Well, I just echo what's been said. I'm proud that Hampshire County Council has the strength to contemplate a 3-year programme like this. It must be one of the largest adult services capital investment programmes in the country. And it is because of prudent financial management over the last 20 years that we've got the reserves and the borrowing capability to undertake a programme like this that is going to make a difference to people's lives, and will also reduce revenue costs in the future. So I'm 100% supportive.
Thank you. Councillor Withers.
Yes, I think in my 4 years to date, to see what we have and what we're going to change, and obviously the future complex needs, and the importance of not only prevention but ensuring that every age group has a quality life, is so important as things progress. So it's to me it's essential that we all support this, and we actually see it coming to fruition.
Thank you, Councillor Withers. Yeah, this is in face of all that the council's facing. This is a really good news story for the benefit of our residents. We're certainly putting them first and foremost in trying to ensure that they get the best possible care from us and life. So I'm very happy to endorse these. Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, June, I think we could stop the recording now.
Thank you. Hannah, can I ask you to stop the recording, please?